Ladies and gentlemen, there is something deeply powerful about the space we leave behind. We often believe that in order to be loved, valued, or even remembered, we must always be present, always saying yes, always showing up, always making ourselves available. But what if I told you that sometimes the greatest gift you can give others and yourself is your absence? Why is it that the absence is the actual absence of ourself? As I sit in my secret places, there is something powerful about absence. In a world that glorifies constant availability, being unreachable feels almost radical. We have been conditioned to believe that the more we give, the more we show up, the more we pour into others, the more we will be loved, appreciated, and valued. But what if the opposite is true? What if stepping back, letting people feel our absence, creates more value than our presence ever could? We often assume that the best way to nurture relationships is through endless giving, persistent showing up, and being the person who never leaves. We believe that if we are always available, always saying yes, always within reach, people will see our worth. But have you ever noticed that the more accessible something is, the less it is appreciated? Scarcity often breeds appreciation. What is rare is often valued, and what is constantly available is easily taken for granted. Think about the times you've longed for someone. Maybe a friend moved away and only then did you realize how much their presence meant to you. Maybe a loved one passed and suddenly every small moment you once overlooked became something you wish you could have back. Absence has a way of awakening gratitude. It makes us pause and reflect on what truly matters. It shifts our perspective and forces us to acknowledge what we might have been taking for granted. The same principle applies to relationships. When you are always available, people may unconsciously assume you always will be. Your kindness, generosity, and presence can start to feel expected rather than appreciated. Not because they don't care, but because human nature often fails to recognize value until it's no longer within reach. It is not until something is removed that people realize its significance. Stepping back does not mean you are punishing anyone. It does not mean you are playing games or trying to manipulate emotions. It means you are allowing space for genuine recognition. It means trusting that if your presence holds true value, people will feel the weight of your absence. It means understanding that your worth is not in how much you give, but in how much you are genuinely valued. This applies to friendships, romantic relationships, work dynamics, and even family connections. Have you ever noticed how some people only reach out when they need something? How some relationships thrive on the assumption that you will always be the one to call, to check in, to keep things together. If you stop initiating and the relationship fades, maybe it was built more on habit than on true connection. It's a hard truth to accept, but sometimes absence reveals what presence could not. It shows you who truly values you for who you are, not just for what you offer. It clarifies who misses you because they cherish you versus who only notices your absence when they need something from you. There is a difference between being wanted and being needed. Being needed can feel validating, but it is often transactional. Being wanted, truly missed, is an indication of deeper connection. When someone misses you, it means your presence was meaningful in a way that can't be replaced. It means your energy, your spirit, and your essence left an imprint. Stepping back also allows you to see your own worth more clearly. When you are constantly pouring into others, it can be easy to lose yourself. You can become so consumed with being there for everyone else that you forget to be there for yourself. Absence allows you to refill your own cup. It gives you space to realign with your purpose, to focus on your own growth, and to ensure that you are not just giving, but also receiving the love, respect, and appreciation you deserve. Some people will only appreciate you when you are no longer available to them in the way they've come to expect. That is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their awareness. It does not mean you are not valuable. It means they failed to recognize it in real time. And that is okay. Sometimes stepping back is the only way for people to truly see. Absence also teaches patience. In a fast-paced world, we are quick to expect immediate gratification. We want instant replies, immediate validation, and constant reassurance. But true connection, deep appreciation, and genuine longing take time. When you are not always available, when you are not constantly showing up on demand, it gives others the opportunity to sit with their feelings, to recognize that they miss you, to understand why, and to reach out, not out of habit, but out of genuine desire. Let them miss you, not because you want to play hard to get, not because you are proving a point, but because your presence is valuable, because your time, your energy, and your love are gifts that should be cherished, not taken for granted. Because you deserve to be in spaces where your presence is not just expected, but deeply appreciated. And if someone does not miss you when you step back, that is your answer. That is clarity. That is the sign you need to stop holding on to what is not holding on to you. Trust that the right people will always feel your absence and will move toward you with intention. And when they do, you will know that their presence in your life is not based on convenience, but on true, heartfelt connection. There is a deep longing in many of us to be seen, valued, and appreciated. We spend so much of our lives trying to prove ourselves, trying to be enough for the people around us, trying to fit into spaces that may not even be meant for us. The desire for approval runs deep because at some level, we all want to belong. We want to be chosen. We want to be needed. But when we attach our self-worth to the approval of others, we hand over control of our value. We begin to measure ourselves by how much we are wanted rather than by how much we truly matter. It is easy to believe that the more available we are, the more loved we will be. That if we say yes to every request, respond to every message immediately, and make ourselves constantly present, people will see our worth. But in reality, constant accessibility does not increase value. It often diminishes it. When something is always there, it can be taken for granted. People assume it will always be available, so they stop appreciating it. The same applies to relationships. When you are always there, always giving, always adjusting yourself to fit the expectations of others, it becomes easy for them to assume that your presence is guaranteed. But guaranteed presence is rarely cherished. Your worth does not come from how much you do for others. It is not found in how quickly you respond, how often you show up, or how well you meet expectations that were never meant for you in the first place. Your worth is inherent. It exists regardless of who acknowledges it. The moment you start defining your value by how much others approve of you, you lose yourself in a cycle of chasing validation. You begin molding yourself into what you think people want, rather than standing firm in who you actually are. When you allow yourself to step back, to not be everywhere for everyone, you give yourself the space to be present for yourself. You start to recognize what drains you and what fulfills you. You begin to differentiate between the relationships that pour into you and those that only take from you. When you are always available, it is hard to see who truly values you and who only values your accessibility. But when you step away, when you stop overextending yourself, clarity emerges. The people who genuinely care about you will remain. They will seek you out not because they need something, but because they cherish who you are. The people who disappear when you stop overgiving were only there because of what you provided, not because of who you are. This realization can be painful, but it is also freeing. It is a reminder that your worth has never been tied to your ability to meet the demands of others. It has never been about how much space you take up in people's lives. You do not need to exhaust yourself trying to prove you are worthy of love and appreciation. The right people will see you, even when you are not trying to be seen. The right people will respect your boundaries, honor your time, and value you, not because of what you do for them, but simply because of who you are. There is a kind of peace that comes with understanding that you are enough as you are. Not as the person who is constantly available, not as the person who bends over backward to be everything for everyone, but simply as yourself. When you let go of the need for approval, you free yourself from the weight of unrealistic expectations. You give yourself permission to exist without constantly seeking validation. You begin to operate from a place of self-worth rather than a place of proving yourself. It is okay to step back. It is okay to let go of the pressure to be everything to everyone. You are not abandoning people by prioritizing yourself. You are not being selfish for refusing to be endlessly accessible. You are simply choosing to honor yourself in the same way you have always honored others. The people who truly love you will not require you to overextend yourself just to keep their affection. They will not demand that you sacrifice your well-being for their comfort. They will respect the fact that you are a whole person with needs, boundaries, and limits. And the more you respect yourself, the more you will attract people who do the same. You do not need to be everywhere for everyone. You do not need to prove your worth through constant giving. Your presence is valuable, not because it is always available, but because it is meaningful. When you stop chasing approval and start standing in your own self-worth, you will realize that the right people, the people who truly see you, will never require you to lose yourself in order to be loved. Love is often thought of as limitless, an endless outpouring of care, attention, and sacrifice. We are taught that love means giving without hesitation, showing up no matter what, and making ourselves available at all times. But real love, healthy love, does not come at the cost of self-sacrifice. It does not require you to exhaust yourself to prove your devotion. True love exists within boundaries, not beyond them. Setting boundaries is not an act of rejection. It is an act of self-respect. It is a way of saying, I value myself enough to protect my time, my energy, and my well-being. When you set boundaries, you are not pushing people away. You are teaching them how to treat you. You are showing them what is acceptable and what is not. You are communicating that your presence is a privilege, not something to be taken for granted. For so long, many of us have believed that saying no is unkind, that if we truly love someone, we should accommodate them, even when it costs us our peace, that we should always be available, always answer the call, always fix the problem, always step in. But love without boundaries is not love. It is obligation. It is a slow erosion of self, where you give so much that you no longer recognize the person you used to be. Boundaries are not about building walls. They are about creating healthy spaces where love can thrive. When you set limits, you allow relationships to be built on respect rather than expectation. You teach people that your time is valuable. You show them that your energy is not unlimited. And most importantly, you remind yourself that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. They will not see them as an act of distance, but as a sign of strength. They will understand that healthy relationships are not based on one person constantly giving while the other takes. They will recognize that honoring your limits does not mean you care less. It means you care deeply enough to preserve the relationship rather than allow it to become unhealthy. On the other hand, those who resist your boundaries are often those who benefited from your lack of them. When you start enforcing limits, some people may push back. They may accuse you of being selfish, distant, or unkind. But their reaction is not a reflection of you. It is a reflection of their expectations. It is a sign that they were more invested in what you could do for them than in who you truly are. This is why boundaries are an act of love, not just for others, but for yourself. When you set limits, you give yourself permission to prioritize your well-being. You allow yourself to rest without guilt. You remove yourself from toxic cycles that drain you. And in doing so, you create space for relationships that are rooted in mutual respect, not obligation. Boundaries also teach you who belongs in your life. The people who respect your limits, who honor your need for space, who appreciate your time rather than expect it, those are the ones who truly value you. The ones who only stay when you are constantly accessible, constantly saying yes, constantly overextending yourself. Those are the ones who were never really there for you. The beauty of boundaries is that they clarify what love is supposed to feel like. Love is not about losing yourself to make others comfortable. It is not about stretching yourself thin to prove your worth. Love is about balance. It is about giving and receiving in a way that nourishes, not depletes. It is about surrounding yourself with people who respect your time as much as you respect theirs. When you set boundaries, you are not saying, I don't love you. You are saying, I love myself too. You are reminding the world that your presence is valuable, that your time is precious, and that your energy deserves to be protected. And the right people, the ones who truly love you, will never ask you to compromise that. They will honor your boundaries, not because they have to, but because they respect the person you are. There is something deeply beautiful about longing. In a world of instant gratification, where everything is just a call, a text, or a click away, we rarely give ourselves the space to miss each other. We assume that being constantly available strengthens our relationships, but in truth, it is absence that reveals our true worth. When someone truly values you, they will notice your absence, not just in a passing way, but in a way that stirs something inside them. They will feel the gap where you once were, and if your presence mattered, they will seek you out with intention. We live in a culture that equates love with closeness, as if distance weakens connection. But think about the moments when you have missed someone deeply. That feeling of longing is not emptiness. It is proof that something meaningful existed. It is evidence of a connection that is not dependent on constant presence, but one that has made an imprint on the heart. Longing teaches appreciation in a way that presence alone never could. It forces people to reflect on what they had, what they may have taken for granted, and what they now deeply desire to have again. Too often, we fear being forgotten, so we overextend ourselves. We keep showing up, keep initiating, keep making ourselves available, believing that if we are always present, people will never stop needing us. But there is a quiet power in stepping back, in allowing space for absence to do its work. When you pull away, not in anger, but in self-respect, you give others the opportunity to decide whether they truly cherish you or if they were simply accustomed to your presence. It is not our constant availability that strengthens relationships, but rather the recognition of our value when we are no longer easily accessible. If someone only appreciates you when you are always within reach, then their connection to you is based on convenience, not genuine care. But if in your absence, they feel your presence even more, if they seek you out, if they make the effort to reconnect, then you know that what you shared was real. There is something sacred about being missed. It means that your presence was meaningful. It means that your energy, your laughter, your essence left a mark that cannot be easily replaced. It is a reminder that you are not just someone who fills empty spaces, but someone whose presence creates something irreplaceable. When you step back and give people the space to long for you, you allow them to make a choice. You let them decide whether they will meet you halfway, whether they will reach out, whether they will honor your presence in their lives. And if they don't, then perhaps your absence did not create a void because your presence was never truly valued in the first place. That is not a loss. It is clarity. It is the gift of knowing where you truly stand. Longing is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of connection. It means something was real. It means something mattered. And when someone reaches out, not because they need something, but simply because they miss you, that is love in its purest form. It is not about obligation, not about habit, but about choice. The ones who truly value you will never let your absence go unnoticed. They will feel it and they will move towards you, not because they have to, but because they want to. And when they do, you will know that their presence in your life is not out of convenience, but out of love. There is a deep temptation to seek validation from others, to measure our worth by how much we are seen, praised, or accepted. From a young age, we are conditioned to seek approval, to be the good child, the dependable friend, the reliable employee, the person who meets expectations. But when we live for validation, we give others the power to define our worth. We start shaping ourselves to fit what we think people want, rather than stepping boldly into who we were meant to be. Living in alignment with your purpose requires a shift in focus. It asks you to move away from external approval and lean into something deeper, something that is not dependent on applause, likes, or recognition. Purpose is not about being seen. It is about being fulfilled. It is about doing what you were created to do, even when no one is watching. It is about choosing impact over popularity, meaning over temporary validation. The danger of chasing validation is that it is never enough. The moment you receive it, you crave more. You adjust yourself, hoping to keep the approval coming. You say yes when you should say no. You seek to please rather than to walk in truth. And the more you do this, the further you drift from your real purpose. You begin living a life shaped by the expectations of others rather than the calling placed on your heart. But when you walk in purpose, you no longer need to chase. You no longer need to prove yourself. Your actions become driven by something greater than external praise. You operate from a place of knowing that you are enough, that your value is not determined by how many people notice you, but by the depth of what you are called to do. Purpose brings clarity. It allows you to see who is truly meant to walk with you. When you stop living for validation, you stop attracting people who only value you for what you can do for them. Instead, you begin drawing in those who respect your journey, who see your worth even when you are not seeking their approval. The right people will recognize your value, not because you demand it, but because purpose naturally reveals who belongs in your life. Walking in purpose also means accepting that not everyone will understand you. Some will question your choices. Some will distance themselves when you no longer seek their validation. That is okay. Purpose is not about pleasing everyone. It is about fulfilling your calling. The people who are truly aligned with your path will not require you to shrink yourself to make them comfortable. They will honor your growth, support your vision, and celebrate your authenticity. There is freedom in knowing that your worth is not tied to anyone's opinion, that you do not have to be everything to everyone, that you do not have to perform to be loved, to overextend yourself, to be accepted, or to constantly prove that you are enough. You are already enough. Your purpose is already within you. And when you walk in it boldly, you will find that the right people, the ones who truly see you, will not require you to chase them. They will walk alongside you, not because you seek their approval, but because your purpose speaks for itself. We often hold on to relationships long past their season, afraid that letting go means losing something valuable. We convince ourselves that if we try a little harder, show up a little more, or make ourselves indispensable, people will appreciate us. But the truth is, real connections do not require force. They do not depend on you proving your worth or making yourself constantly available. The people who are meant to stay in your life will never need to be convinced of your value. It is easy to believe that distance weakens relationships, but in reality, space often reveals what was truly there. When you step back, when you stop initiating every conversation, when you let silence replace constant effort, you give others the chance to decide what you mean to them. And that choice is revealing. If someone does not notice your absence, if they do not seek you out, it is not because you were unworthy of connection. It is because they were never truly invested in it. Letting go of forced connections is not an act of bitterness. It is an act of trust. It is trusting that your presence is a gift, not something to be taken for granted. It is understanding that relationships should be mutual, that you should not have to beg for time, attention, or appreciation. Love, friendship, and true connection are not meant to be exhausting battles for recognition. There is a quiet pain in realizing that someone does not miss you when you step back, but there is also clarity in that revelation. It frees you from investing energy in places where it is not reciprocated. It allows you to redirect your love and presence toward relationships that are built on mutual respect and care. The people who genuinely value you will not let distance turn into detachment. They will not need to be reminded of your importance. They will feel it. Releasing forced connections does not mean you stop loving people. It means you stop chasing them. It means you honor yourself enough to accept when someone's role in your life has come to an end. It means you trust that the right people, the ones who truly see you, appreciate you, and cherish your presence, will remain. They will not need pressure or persuasion. They will not require constant reassurance of your worth. They will choose you freely and intentionally. When you let go of those who are not meant to stay, you make room for the ones who are. You allow space for relationships that do not drain you, for friendships that do not require constant proving, for love that is given without conditions. You begin to understand that your worth was never tied to how hard you fought for someone to see you. It was always within you, waiting to be recognized by those who were meant to. The right relationships will honor your presence. They will not need force. They will not require you to chase. And when you stop holding on to what is not meant for you, you create space for the connections that truly are.